10 reasons why I'm a feminist. Okay.
A lot of people tend to demonise feminism, and it's usually because they don't understand it or don't fully understand it.
Very condescending opening. Already off to a bad start. I mean, assuming that people don't understand something and they're misrepresenting it, or they're just so stupid they don't get it, is very condescending. I mean, it's pretty obvious that they do understand it and they see the behavior. The reason that feminism has a stigmatization is because of the behavior of feminists. And that doesn't necessarily completely represent feminism itself, which is, I guess, in a way, it's an abstract thing, because it does not exist as an entity. It's anything that people do in the name of it. It's anything. It's essentially a principle, which is good intended in itself, but it can be corrupted by people and their bigotry. So it's not necessarily a bad thing intrinsically, but people have ruined it, and that's the point. And I think people recognize that and realize that, and that's why they have aversions to it. It has nothing to do with being misinformed or uninformed, although maybe some people are.
And I thought that I'd share 10 reasons why I'm a feminist, which may or may not clear things up a little bit. So, I'm a feminist because if a woman sleeps with a different man every weekend, she's called a whore, a slut, and easy. But if a man sleeps with a different woman every weekend, he's a stud and applauded for it.
You know, I've heard that a lot. I don't see exactly, first of all, what that has to do with feminism and what feminism can do about that. Are you trying to police behavior and speech and control people? Because that doesn't seem not only feasible, but it doesn't seem morally right to do that anyway. I'm not saying it's right. I think that any kind of double standard hypocrisy is a bad thing, but it's not something you can even demonstrate to necessarily exist, even statistically. I mean, sure, instances like that would happen, but it's not necessarily a given. A man in that same position might not be applauded for it, and a woman wouldn't necessarily be denigrated. You know, you don't really know those things. That might be the general inclination, but I don't see, you know, how you could even have statistics for that, because are people necessarily going to admit that they hold that kind of a double standard outright in a statistic? I mean, I guess it's probably true that that double standard does exist, but I don't see what you can do about it. And I don't see how it's an issue for feminism to tackle, because what is the methodology of attacking that double standard? How do you go about doing that? And why should you? Because it's basically policing behaviors that aren't really harmful. So I don't really get it.
Because if a woman says she's been raped, she's either lying or she was probably asking for it.
That's also blatantly false. I mean, not everybody thinks that. A lot of time people will actually support women and they'll just believe them without any evidence, and that's why you get instances where women, you know, claim they were raped falsely, and even after it's proven, it doesn't change the stigmatization of the accused, and it still ruins the accused's life. So I don't think that there is this huge problem where people just, you know, don't believe women. I think that the problem is actually that people would believe women without evidence. And I guess maybe both problems could simultaneously exist, but I don't see you, you know, in the name of feminism, dealing with both issues. Maybe only one of them's a problem to you. I'm not saying that that's the case, but you should support, if you're going to support one of those things in the name of feminism, you should support both of them, because they're both bad. But again, I don't really exactly see what feminism can do about that. People, they victim blame, so feminism stands against that. It doesn't change that. It doesn't have any effect. And I understand you can hold a different point of view. If someone says, you know, they hold an opinion on something, you hold a different opinion, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to join a movement over it. I don't exactly see how feminism is going to solve this. or even could.
Because, I mean, look at what she was wearing and what she was drinking and her sexual history. And
Well, what she was drinking would make her an easier target. That's the point. It's not so much that she'd be blamed for it, as she would have an element of her own culpability. An element, because she made it easier for a predator to take advantage of the situation. That doesn't justify it, but it made her more likely, and that was within her control. And she did not have to do that. And even being inebriated, she wouldn't necessarily have to make risky decisions, because being drunk or no, people still can make some semblance of decisions.
And also because if a man says he's been raped, he's laughed at because, of course, men can't get raped.
I think that's... I agree that that's an absurdity, and that's a disgusting view. But again, I don't exactly see how feminism can do anything about that.
Because grown women are still called girls, while grown men are just men.
I don't see how that's infantilization. It's just a word. It's not necessarily in relation. It's not a condescending usage of the word girl. They don't. If it's said with the word little before it, I could see that. But if someone just said girl, it's probably a subconscious speech. It's not even something that is being done to slight women. If someone says a woman is a girl, it doesn't mean anything unless they're saying it in that context. But men can be called boys too, so it's really contextually based. It's not necessarily a given, and it has nothing to do with infantilization. It's just a word, and it's not even being used in that context necessarily. So, again, I don't see the problem.
Because women are objectified everywhere, from movies and films to just general advertising.
Sure, but men are too. And it's not like women wouldn't have an element in that, going and modeling and doing all this stuff, or these TV commercials, with all this cleavage shown and zoomed in on, or whatever. It's not like women aren't doing that and getting paid for it. Are you against women doing that and getting paid for it? Are you against that kind of like women making that choice? Having that freedom, is that a bad thing to you? I mean, I don't get it. I don't necessarily see the problem here, because I don't actually believe in a literalistic objectification. No one's saying these are objects and it's permissible to rape them and fuck them and do whatever you want because they're not people. No one sees it that way, except, maybe rapists, but that's about it. Beyond that, if someone's maybe being sexualized, that doesn't mean they're an object. I mean, why would you have such an aversion to sexuality that you would see someone else being sexual as being objectified or reduced? I mean, that would seem like that would be on your end. That'd be your problem with it.
Because men are portrayed as bumbling idiots when it comes to housework and childcare, but suave businessmen with winning ideas in the work environment. Because
I'm going to hear that one again.
advertising. Because men are portrayed as bumbling idiots when it comes to housework and childcare, but suave businessmen with winning ideas in the work environment.
Portrayed by who? I mean, I don't necessarily think that that's actually a held position by people. I mean, maybe they're portrayed that way. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter, because how you're portrayed and how you actually are is two different things. And I don't necessarily think representation is important. It doesn't actually represent anyone. You live your life. No one is literally living it on a stage representing you as a person. You have your own life entirely separate, and you can do what you want. So I don't necessarily see the connection.
Because the mother is more likely to be awarded custody of the children than the father, purely because people think that they're more loving and competent than the man. Because there's
not that they're more competent, that they're more competent as it pertains to raising a child, and that would be, I don't know, a patriarchal view, I would say, and a problem. And it seems like you're against that, which would be a good thing. I don't know. That's an interesting topic. I don't think only feminists can agree on that point though. And if other groups can agree on it, in your other points don't make a lot of sense. Why feminism? Why not something else?
Still a wage gap between men and women,
Demonstrate that.
which widens even further for women of colour. Because
Okay. Link in description. It's just a Twitter. Okay then. I couldn't find exact figures for the UK wage gap, but in the US it's about 77 cents to a man's $1. You couldn't find statistics. Stupid.
girls are allowed to wear boys' colours and play with boys' toys, while boys aren't allowed to play with girls' toys or wear girl colours because of
Bullshit. They might be made fun of for it. Both people might be made fun of for it, but they're both allowed to do it. And if they're not, that's a parenting thing. It's kind of a overbearing parent controlling their child's behavior. That's not a men and women issue. It's a parenting issue. So, and that's hypothetically if that's even true. So, it just seems really stupid.
Of course it'll emasculate them and make them gay. Because young girls are still married off to men 2, 3, 4 times older than them.
Okay, that's a legitimate issue, but what is feminism doing about that? And how does that even relate to the Western world anyway?
In some places in the world. Because women still can't breastfeed in some public places because it's obscene, despite the fact that...
Obscene? I don't think anybody says it's obscene. I think it's just a public nudity thing. It's a technicality, you know? Maybe they should write an exemption to that law, but it has nothing to do with obscenity. It would just be strictly based on the literalistic interpretation of those laws, and without any sensitive context. You know, they would give exemption. That would be the only reason for it. It wouldn't be a moral aversion. It would be because of a public nudity thing.
That's what breasts are made for. This is by no means a complete list.
That's what breasts are made for? I mean, that's one of the functions of them, but if that was all they were for, you know, why would men have them? I mean, and I don't know, the made for thing gets into a creationism thing I really don't like.
There are so many more reasons as to why I'm a feminist, but I wouldn't be able to fit it all into a short video because I've been known to talk about feminist
Then make it longer. Jesus.
issues for hours at a time. I'll no doubt do more videos about feminism in the future, so if you want to see those, then don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, bye.
Well, that's it.